Talk about boot shaking going on in college football. Do we have the Kirby Smart thing?
Oh, we got it.
We got it? Okay,
we got him.
This was said, and when I read the quote, because that's where I saw it, I read it, I assumed tongue-in-cheek. Good friends with old Dan Lanning, Kirby Smart, his old boss. And Kirby's one of these guys that says things knowing he's going to create a little bit of something.
Yeah, he knows what he's doing.
And he had this to say when talking about Oregon.
This year we took Nike, who I've had the great pleasure of meeting Phil Knight and his wonderful wife Penny, and I wish I could get some of that NIL money that he's sharing with Dan Lanning, but that's another note.
You lost me there in the beginning. You said my NIL what?
The joke about Nike and Dan Lanning.
Oh, yeah, about Dan Lanning having the treasure chest to open up and get whatever he wants. Yeah, but what was your question?
Now that's friendly fire.
No, that's just fun.
That is just fun.
I love it.
However, I think these guys operate with a level of respect, knowing when you say things like this, it's tongue-in-cheek, but it's no different than when you joke with your boys. There's always a little truth to that joke,
Absolutely,
right?
These guys have ginormous egos anyway. And
Massive.
they're like,
I find this
Kirby's
interesting.
like, dude, we've won how many national championships in the last couple of years?
Probably should have
two.
won 3 in a row. They would have won 3 in a row if they were in the playoff last year.
Yeah, hard to, yes.
Your money goes further out here.
But
we stretch your dollars further.
we had Shahan Jayaraja on earlier at 6:30 for an early ticker, and he said when they got to Corian Moore, the 5-star receiver out of Duncanville, just in his backyard in Dallas, he said people in Texas are starting to feel the squeeze of Oregon. Oregon is also in line, at least all the crystal balling happening is they're going to get the number 1 DB today in DJ Pickett. Thank you. And they may be in line for 2 other 5-stars, and if that happens, they've got the number 1 recruiting class. They have not won a national championship, as everybody that doesn't like Oregon likes to point out.
I didn't know that. Really? They haven't won one yet?
But I do think what you're seeing in the change of recruiting, transfer portal stuff, I mean, Gabriel's making so much damn money. He's buying chains for everybody now. I think you're starting to see boot shaking happening in college football, and you can laugh at that all you want.
Yeah.
But I think when Kirby Smart, who many is saying is the new Saban, when he's mentioning Dan Lanning and Nike in jest, I think there's a little truth to that. And I think people in college football are starting to see what's happening out west, and I think part of that is indeed Phil Knight.
There was a great tweet. I should have liked it so I could pull it up and read it, but it was from a former USC safety. So somebody who is not in the camp of Oregon football.
Taylor Mays?
No, I think it was Sua Cravens maybe who
Okay.
had it. It was one of their former safeties, but he had a tweet. He saw this Kirby Smart stuff yesterday. And USC fan has been very angry at Oregon because they're coming in and bullying Lincoln Riley, and we've stuffed him in a closet now. Nobody hears from him anymore. Maybe we will at some point next week at Big Ten Media Day. But he basically, as a USC safety, came out and said, this is so ridiculous. It has been well known for everybody that has played college football and been through college football over the last 50 years that all the best players in the SEC make money. All of the best players in the SEC got paid bags. There was the Fred Taylor story about how he ended up at Florida. Georgia gave him a $200,000 bag of cash, and he just kept it. He didn't even end up committing. He just
It was 50 grand.
50 grand, thank you. 50 grand. He was
Bag.
like, yeah, sure, I'll take it. I'm not returning the money. Thank you for 50 grand. My team lost a national championship game on a last-second field goal because a quarterback was allowed to play because the school gave his father's church $200,000, not to the player. That was okay. He was allowed to play, but I'm now supposed to be upset that my school's doing this. I love the anger and animosity that is growing. And I'm not even saying Kirby's doing this, but I think there are a lot of fan bases around the country that feel that way. They're growing pissed because they look at themselves in the mirror and say, wait a minute, we're Georgia. Wait a minute, we're Texas. We're Oklahoma. We're LSU.
We're USC.
We're Miami.
Yeah.
We're USC.
Yeah.
We get these kids. You don't get these kids. And I love that Oregon is pissing them off.
So I found Sua Craven's Twitter account. He's with CBS Sports, by the way.
Let's
Maybe
get him
we'll
on the
Sua
show.
Craven's on.
Yeah.
He said the irony to hear SEC teams that have bought their talent over the last 30 years, consequence-free, complain
Yes.
about another team beating them at their own game is top tier. LOL.
It's the same thing with USC fans, and a lot of people in his comments pointed that out of like, let's not act like only SEC teams are buying kids. Lendale White has told all sorts of stories about his recruitment to USC.
But I don't think he would deny it. I think
No.
what he's finding funny is what we all find funny. Whether USC fan is sounding off on message boards complaining about Phil Knight and Nike, That's irrelevant. Sua Cravens was a part of this process when he was an upcoming high school talent.
Definitely got a bag to go to USC.
Who could have chose anywhere to go in the country probably, and he chose USC, but he's basically like, get out of here, SEC.
Yes.
You guys win how many national championships? You're the conference of all the conferences. You have the most power, the most say, the most sway. You're going to bitch and moan because Oregon's suddenly pulling some players in the NIL world.
Somebody's beating you at your game and you're not happy about it.
It's just that's what I would like to say to the Paul Feinbaums in the world is like how ridiculous this whole landscape of that sport has been largely pre-NIL. It's like, well, SEC's the only one that matters. Yeah, because they're the biggest cheaters.
Yeah, right.
And to act like that wasn't happening or to never mention it or never make it a part of the conversation, it's ridiculous. It doesn't take away the fact that these teams are incredibly talented and win.
Everybody was doing it mostly.
But now other teams and players in this sport have more legit shots to compete with you in the talent pool. It's just funny to watch some of this stuff be a little boot shaking, be called out of like, oh my God, like Oregon's pulling guys out of Texas now. If they get Pickett, now it's Florida. And you start to build kind of your footprint. Remember when Clemson came out and they've got, who did they get? They got the kid from California. I'm blank. Oh, DJ.
Oh, yeah.
When they got DJ from California, it's like, oh my God, Clemson's out west now.
Yeah, they're pulling kids from the West Coast. Yeah.
It's no different than that. It's like Oregon's footprint is going past the Western time zone. It's going into the Midwest. It's going into the South. It's going into states like Florida. And it's just funny to watch some of the boot shaking happening. As a person with no dog in the real fight, I find it hilarious how nervous I think some of this is making some of these programs.
Now, the great response from Lanning at Big Ten Media Day, which he probably won't do, but if he came out at his press conference with is Georgia going to institute a driver's ed class kind of line in his press conference, it would just be the cherry on top. Are we beefing with Georgia now? Is this a new rivalry? Bring on Bulldogs. You'll bark at somebody else, you weirdos.
I watched his press conference, by the way, Kirby, his opening one. And after he filibustered about half his media availability, he had 15 minutes left. Not one question asked about having 24 traffic violations post the Jalen Carter death traffic thing that happened in 2022.
Yeah,
24.
Speaking of NIL too, so it wasn't at his main press thing, but I think somebody sat down with an interview and asked him about this because I did see a couple of answers on it. This is the unique landscape that we're living in, and again, reminder that everybody uses NIL and everybody's buying players. And the NIL collective in Georgia is the one that they're finding a lot of these kids. Like, they're taking away their money. They have little clauses in their contracts that say, conduct detrimental to the team or whatever you want to classify it as. A lot of these guys that are getting in trouble are losing money. And he got really defensive over it. He said 90% of our program's not getting in trouble. It's the small percentage that is causing headlines and making everybody think that we're out of control or, You
have 24 traffic
and I would agree with you there.
Post 2022, you have a problem.
It's just a unique reminder of the landscape that we're living in, of the NIL collective is finding these players like like it's Roger Goodell saying, oh, you got in trouble for a traffic violation. We're taking away 50 G's or you celebrated too much. The irony as well of this notion that Oregon has a war chest and they can get whatever player they want is hilarious to me because we just did a segment talking about the SEC and one of the dark horses in that conference is Ole Miss. Who was the number one player in the transfer portal this offseason? It was Walter Nolan, a transfer from Texas A&M. He's a number one defensive lineman in the country. Every program in the nation that had a chance to get him was salivating over getting Walter Nolan. If Oregon had the ability to get every player they wanted because they pay more than any other school in the country, why is Walter Nolan not in Eugene?
Because he's in Ole Miss, and Nick Saban said because of the way they've hit the portal, Ole Miss can now compete with teams like Georgia.
So he just wanted to go to win at Ole Miss. Yeah. Money had nothing to do with it. Ole Miss never buys players. There's no cash bags that are getting handed out, no NIL deals. He just went there because he loves Lane Kiffin.